Hello, everybody. We're glad to see you here for a webinar. We'll be waiting a minute or two just to allow everyone to join, everybody that registered. Hello, everybody, again. Thank you for joining. We'll be starting the webinar in a few seconds. We're just waiting to see if anyone else hasn't joined yet. I see people are still joining us. Okay, so hello everybody. I'm very happy to see you here for our webinar. We have global attendance here from the United States and Europe and Israel. And we're very happy to have Kinexum team here as well with us and ADRES team, myself and my mother Rivka. And we welcome all of you to a webinar where we're going to be talking about the option of conducting your early stage research, clinical research, and drug development research uh, in Israel as a location that could be very interesting for different reasons. And I want to first say that we've been in contact with Kinexum team for many years now. And I think it's been probably 2 or 3 years since the first time when Thomas asked me, Roy, you work in Israel. We've been working in Israel for a few years. We've had Israeli clients and American clients looking into Israel, and we get a sense that Israel is a good place to conduct clinical research. And Thomas asked me, "Is it so? Let's try to define it. Why is Israel a good place to conduct early stage research?" And we've been thinking about this question for these 2 years. Naturally, for us, most of our clients work in Israel, and so it's pretty obvious to us what the benefits of working in Israel in drug development are. But let's try to convey this message. We know that startups around the world struggle with resources and infrastructure and guidance in their drug development. Let's make it clear what's interesting about operating in Israel, while keeping in mind that Israel is not the main market, of course, for the drugs that are being developed, but it is a very good, reasonable, sensible place to start. So we decided to start with this webinar today, which will be a first of a series of webinars in which we cover the support you can get in Israel for your drug development. Just to say a few words about why it's important for us that you know that we are not a part of the Israeli government in any way. We are a private consultancy, and so is Kinexum. And we support clients globally. Let me just say a few words about ADRES. We give regulatory support and quality support and manufacturing for all stages of development. And many times we come across a non-Israeli company that wants to find the best location, and we come to the conclusion that Israel is the place. And we thought that we could assist many more companies in the USA, in Europe, in finding whether Israel is the right location for you, and if it is, support you in these activities, working at least partially in Israel. So I told you a little bit about what we do and what we plan to discuss today, and I'm going to hand over the mic to Michael. From Kinexum, please tell us a bit about Kinexum and yourself, and then give us your perspective on the issue at hand. If you can just please start the presentation, Michael, because we see the PowerPoint. Exactly. Thank you. And
Very
just for our audience, sorry, Michael, one more thing for our audience. We'll be sending you the recording of this webinar after the webinar ends. During the webinar, you have the Q&A section. Feel free to write questions during the whole webinar, and we will leave a few minutes at the end. It's going to be about 40 minutes until we get to the Q&A section. So please, Michael, and followed by my mother, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So enjoy the webinar and go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Roy. So I'm Michael Zemmel. I'm CSO of Kinexum, a strategic consultancy, US based. I honestly had never contemplated doing a clinical trial in Israel until just a few years ago when the opportunity arose. And I was I was quickly converted from a skeptic to a fan. The pragmatic approach really impressed me, and the speed with which one could go from seeking approval to first patient, first visit was pleasantly surprising. And I now really look at Israel as one of the places that it really is a first choice in many cases for placing clinical trials. Let me give you a quick overview. I'll just do a US comparison. We can talk about other jurisdictions as well. The regulatory burden in Israel is relatively low. There obviously is a regulatory environment, but the burden is substantially lower than in the US, focused on speed and simplicity. Um, uh, phase one trials, and this actually goes to phase two trials as well, are substantially less expensive in Israel. I think in part just due to efficiencies, especially in patient recruitment and general lower costs, somewhere between 30 and 40% lower cost than in the US. The studies in healthy, normal individuals are quite efficient. The time from recruitment to trial completion is compressed compared to number of US clinical trials that we've worked on. Where I think Israel especially thrives, excels, is on the last row, and that is in patient cohorts. Whether you're talking about a phase 2A trial or phase 2B trial for that matter, or a 1B trial in which you're seeking to add patient cohorts for proof of concept toward the end of a multiple ascending dose trial, the speed is unrivaled. It's actually extraordinary. And I'll get to why that is in just a moment. Now, let's start with the regulatory regimen. The US, of course, this is a well-known path. It is, a somewhat high regulatory burden. The full formal IND submission, followed by a mandatory 30-day FDA review, during which you get queries. Sometimes those queries come on day 28 or 29 of your 30-day review period, and sometimes put you at risk of clinical hold. And the US IND, of course, requires a complete non-clinical package, including final audited reports and send data. The difference in Israel, and certainly other jurisdictions also do not require an IND, but you're not going through the IND path. You're going through a dual approval of your local institution IRB, uh, as well as Ministry of Health. Those can be done either sequentially or concurrently. Um, it's sometimes wise to go to the Ministry of Health first, but indeed, we sometimes will do a concurrent submission for a drug with a strong preclinical safety package going simultaneously to Ministry of Health and IRB. The Ministry of Health takes a very pragmatic approach to scientific review. All jurisdictions that you would want to go to are following the same ICH guidelines, but how those ICH guidelines are interpreted for non-clinical data vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction in such a way, and I'll come to this in a subsequent slide, that can compress the application time and permit a much more rapid start, somewhere between 14 weeks from submitting your first application to first patient, first visit. This is a time savings of at least 3 months, often 6 months or more, compared to the classic IND route in the US. Now, just as in the US with a pre-IND meeting, you have the opportunity for a pre-submission meeting. Just as in the US, this pre-sub meeting is not required, but if you choose to do it, if for example, you have a drug with a very clean or relatively clean safety and tox profile, it may not, in fact, it's probably not necessary to ask questions about the sufficiency of your package. But there are a number of special circumstances in which you would want to de-risk your submission, just as in the US. The difference is the timeline and what you have to put together. The Ministry of Health adopts a fairly fluid timeline, which is substantially faster than the US FDA 60-day PIND meeting clock. What goes into your pre-submission package is fairly compact. It's a fairly brief CMC package and a high-level summary of non-clinical data focused only on key points that you want to address, certainly explaining your basis for what your starting dose is, ideally providing a draft protocol because you're looking to start soon, but a synopsis is fine, and the appropriate de-risking questions. So a lot of that is similar to a US pre-IND, but it is a smaller, more compact package, which typically takes about 2 weeks to prepare. Um, uh, what's nice is that once you've done that and submit your meeting request, the time from submitting your meeting request to getting it acknowledged and getting your meeting scheduled is a week or two, with the meeting often being 4 weeks after your submission of meeting request. So it's really quite a bit quicker. Um, One of the places that talking about a first in human study where you see real advantage that can produce a time savings is the ability to defer studies. So if you look at your standard IND enabling package, which includes your safety pharmacology, your core battery, your GLP tox, your genotox, um, there are some differences. Obviously, you're going to need your standard safety farm battery, and you're going to need a GLP tox study of it, or tox package, I should say, of at least 14 days. Um, After that, you need to have your Ames test in order to start, but you can defer your micronucleus studies, in vitro and in vivo micronucleus studies, to be run concurrently with your first in human studies. So this can save some real time. In additional time savings comes from the fact that the Ministry of Health in their review will accept draft toxicology reports. Send data is simply not required to be submitted. And if you've ever waited for a final audited signed report and then waited a little longer for send data, the combination of the willingness to review draft reports, not requiring send data, And deferring your genotox can save anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Excuse me. The cost comparison for a first in human, actually for your phase 1 program, combination of SAD and MAD, using just some representative numbers here, typically results in a 40% reduction in gross cost for your typical single ascending dose study and multiple cohort 28-day multiple ascending dose study. The illustration here shows about a 30 to 35% savings. We typically see about a 40% savings. I was being conservative in making this slide. Now, where the advantage, as I mentioned earlier, really begins to shine is when you look at speed to recruiting patient cohorts as opposed to healthy normal volunteer cohorts. If you've done clinical trials in the US, you know that once you get beyond healthy normal volunteers, you have competition for patients. You may be using a clinical site that has more than one competing trial, often for the same indication. Of course, we have in the US a fragmented system. Our healthcare data is siloed across a number of separate providers. And beyond that, we have our HIPAA regulations, which makes exploring those data resources difficult, if not impossible. Recruitment becomes really the major bottleneck in US clinical trials, often seeing a high screen failure rate, a higher cost per completed patient, especially because of those screen failures, and just a slower overall recruitment. The advantage in Israel, beyond any jurisdiction that I'm aware of, comes from these facts. First of all, nearly the entire Israeli population is covered by 4 large digitized HMOs that have decades of data, digitized patient records that allow for very rapid digital screening of the appropriate patient population. So you can very quickly, and the privacy laws are such that this is permitted. So this enables a sponsor to rapidly identify and recruit even a complex patient cohort in really just a fraction of the time that it takes to enroll comparable studies in the US. And this is true for large common diseases as well as for rare diseases. And so all in all, what that gets us to is a fairly a substantial time savings, even for first in trials. I would say 3 to 6 months faster, and roughly 40% savings on your combination of 1A and 1B. But again, where Israel really shines beyond those cost savings and pragmatic initial review is when you begin to recruit patient cohorts. That can be patient cohorts that are tacked on, added to a 1B trial where you've done 3, 4, or 5 healthy normal volunteer cohorts, and now you wish to study some patient cohorts, or a separate freestanding 1B trial before moving into a 2A or a seamless 1B 2A trial. The recruiting of patient cohorts, as I've said, is quite quick. I do not think there is anywhere a faster, more efficient path to get to a go, no-go data set at the end of phase 2A. And I personally appreciate that very much. There's also a fair bit of flexibility. Give you an example. If you can imagine completing a multiple ascending dose study or your basic healthy normal volunteer phase 1 package, and now wish to add on to your multiple ascending dose study patient cohorts that had not originally been contemplated, and you further wish to study them for a longer period of time, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, something on that order, and have not yet completed your chronic tox studies. What do you do? Well, what you can do is you can submit your safety data from your single and multiple ascending dose studies and make a request to the Ministry of Health that they permit a longer term patient centered study based on the combination of 1B safety and in life data from an ongoing toxicology program, typically in dogs and rats. That is an enablement that really saves not months, but many months beyond those that I've already cited. And with that, I will pause. I will say thank you and await your questions.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. That was really, really interesting. And could you please, I think that the attendees would be happy to hear a bit more about what Kinexum does in general, just for the context and to learn a bit more about your activities. And then we can go move to my mother.
That would be, we of course would be delighted to give you a rundown of what Kinexum has to offer. And while I'd be happy to do it, we happen to have our CEO on this panel, Thomas Suh, and so I'll ask Thomas to turn his camera on
Wonderful,
and answer
wonderful.
that.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining, Thomas.
Thank you, Michael and Roy. Kinexum is a regulatory, clinical, product, and even corporate development strategic advisory firm. We represent clients before FDA and other major regulatory agencies in terms of negotiations with them and submissions to those agencies. We perform sell and buy side due diligence for investment bankers and their clients. And for emerging clients, we will provide development strategy, plans, timelines, and budgets so that they can justify asks when they go talk to investors. We do a variety of other things, but those are major things that we do. I'd say that we are distinctive in a couple of ways. We have over 80 expert consultants, subject matter experts on our website. You can see their biographies. These are all seasoned industry veterans or former FDA. We have about a dozen former agency officials who are members of our group. And the second thing I guess I would say is that we have a very robust pro bono practice. We have a not-for-profit Kitalis Institute that is a thought leader in healthy longevity. We host a conference every year, and we have proposed legislation for a pathway, a regulatory pathway for health span products.
Thank you, Thomas, and you're also very close friends and colleagues of ours. And please, Rivka, who's also my mother, please give us the Israeli perspective on the subject. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Michael and Thomas. I will share my screen, which will be... Okay, I hope that you can see that.
We can see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So actually, I will, there are some aspects that I will repeat and maybe expand a bit about what what Michael said. So I will start by saying that like 20 years ago, Israel was recognized as a country in which it is important and it is an advantage to conduct phase 1 clinical trials. And it was actually agreed both by the FDA and also the European authorities because the heterogeneity of the population and the fact that the Israeli population reflects very closely the population both in the United States, in Europe, and also from other areas in the world. So that is a good combination that assists with the development of drugs to be used in other areas in the world. Now about the infrastructure in Israel, which also is important and has an impact to the success of the clinical trials, the way that Michael presented that. There are modern hospitals. Most of them have a phase 1 unit, and I will mention some of them later. They are well equipped, and actually we have them spread over the country so that you can conduct a clinical trial in 3 or 4 hospitals at the same time, and all of them are equipped with the relevant equipment and the phase 1 units. Analytical laboratories which support the development, establishment, and validation of analytical and bioanalytical methods. That's also something which is important. We don't need to send for every analytical method or bioanalytical assay samples to laboratories outside of Israel. Most of the things can be conducted within Israel. We have several pilot scale CDMOs. Some of them are specialized in chemical and peptide manufacturing. Others are specialized in biological, biotechnology products, and others ATMP, cell and gene therapy products. So those are also supporting the fact that you can, if you wish, you can manufacture your initial GMP material in Israel, conduct the studies here, and then if needed, you can transfer that to any larger facility in other areas in the world. And also we have several companies which deal with logistic, storage, and distribution centers, and also provide QP services, which is required by the European authorities. Michael spoke a lot about consultation with regulatory authorities. I personally, I think that I was one of the first consultants that approached the Israeli Ministry of Health years ago when I started my company, and I said, look, I have a lot of startup companies approaching me. They want to be sure that what they are going to submit to the Ministry of Health is acceptable. I recommend them to talk to you. Are you willing to accept us? And they said yes. And since then, almost every client that we have, we take them for early consultation with the Ministry of Health, even before the GLP studies have been conducted, because our experience is that there are cases, and Michael talked about that in large, that the Ministry of Health may accept before a phase 1 study data from one species and not always two. It depends on what other data the company has, whether they have some a literature survey that they conducted, whether they have a robust development data that they can provide. And also there are agreements about continuing conducting studies and providing the data to the Ministry of Health as it becomes available. Those meetings, as Michael mentioned, what we do nowadays is that we call the relevant department and ask for, tell them about the new client or a new project that we have, and we set a meeting which may take between 2 to 4 weeks to set the meeting, and a few days prior to that meeting, we provide with a well-written presentation which explain about the product, the process, the challenges, the preclinical data to be provided, the clinical outline, and we conduct a discussion which may be in person or via video conference if we have sponsors coming from the United States or Europe or any other place in the world. Then we can also have those discussions at the time which is appropriate for the sponsor who is located outside of Israel. Sorry. So actually here there is no much to say because, as I said, Michael covered much of that, but what I wanted to emphasize is about the fact the Israeli Ministry of Health apply a case-by-case risk-based review considering product risk, the intended patient population, and available alternatives. And when a literature-backed risk assessment and existing data show no significant toxicity, a GLP toxicity program in a single relevant species, for example, may be acceptable with a plan for further studies as required either by the guideline or because the Ministry of Health feels that that is necessary, but not necessary prior to the first in human study. So what makes Israel more relevant than other countries in early development? The first thing that I mentioned is the population. And in addition to that, the ICH aligned expectations, they adhere to the ICH, they required adherence to ICH GCP and local regulations so that it is easy to bridge the data across regions. So if you conduct a study in Israel, which you declare that it was conducted according to the GCP requirements and the principal investigator takes responsibility over that, and there is a quality oversight to through the conduct of the study, then it is going to be accepted by the US FDA, by the European different countries, or by EMA, and also by other countries over the world. Phase 1 capability at major centers, as I mentioned before, leading Western hospitals run phase 1 programs like the Ichilov Hospital, Hadassah Center. We have a robust oncology units at the Rambam Hospital in Haifa. So all that gives the sponsors experienced sites for early development, and there is a high commitment by those centers to the sponsors and a very good collaboration. Strong data infrastructure, as mentioned already by Michael, and significantly lower cost base. Israel typically offers lower site fees and CRO rates than the US and Western Europe, translating into smaller phase 1 budget. And also Michael provide you also with some numbers, which is important to mention. And about the submission, as Michael mentioned, it is a parallel submission to the local Helsinki committees and the Ministry of Health. You need to submit a study protocol, ICF and IB, and for products which are injectables or ATMP or biologicals, you need to provide a phase-appropriate module 3, which you can submit either in IMD or IMPD format. Both are acceptable. So if you develop an IND to submit to the FDA, you don't need to arrange that in another way in order to submit it to the Ministry of Health in Israel. And similarly for an IMPD, if you have a CTA in Europe, you can submit the IMP format in Israel as well. And it is only module 3 that you need to submit. Michael already spoke about the fact that you can submit toxicological study protocols in a draft format. And the time to approval for submission is usually up to 3 months, and sometimes less than that if the submission was really organized as according to the guidance. And if you have had a pre-submission meeting, an early meeting with the Ministry of Health, they already know what to expect. So when they are part of the committee that approves the protocol, they can talk about the company, the product, and the development. Other advantages are that the Israeli scientific community is well known in the world, and there are a lot of projects coming out of this scientific community. The clinical community is known as a high-level community. Pharmaceutical industry, very developed and advanced and supportive of the development of new products. And also we have key opinion leaders in a variety of expertise that can support different development of different products for different indications. So that is my last slide. And I think, Roy, that we can move to the questions now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. You can, I think, stop sharing your screen.
I will
And
do so.
Kinexum team, if you can get back to us, please. Hi. So you covered several aspects of the development in Israel, and we do have one question from our audience, which is the question is by Daniel. Hi, Daniel. How are you? Also a close friend from Germany. Thank you for joining us here. And Daniel is asking, I'll just read the question, and I think that everyone should be able to see it now. Recruitment in special populations, for example, renal or hepatic impairment, and pediatric populations are sometimes a concern in early clinical stages. Where do you see Israel in this regard?
So I can give the first answer to
Yes,
that. I think
please.
I see Israel as really providing better access than elsewhere. So, for example, hepatic impairment was mentioned. So you've got at Sheba the Center for Excellence in Liver Diseases, which not only provides clinical care, but is also a center for clinical trials in liver impairment. Sheba also has what's called an Institute for Nephrology and Hypertension. Likewise, it's a center of excellence which not only provides clinical care, but actually has a large number of clinical trials in renal impairment. So the patient population is there. Obviously, standard human subjects safeguards, as you would expect anywhere. In
Thank you,
terms of
Michael.
pediatrics, again, finding the patients is where Israel provides a real advantage. because of the 4 large HMOs. And there is a pediatric specialty hospital that is a referral center, Schneider, I think it's called. Is that correct, Roy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That serves also as a basis for pediatric trials, requiring obviously not only parental consent, but the assent of the child.
Thank you, Michael. Mother, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just wanted to add that personally, I have been involved in the development of 2 or 3 products for the pediatric population. In all cases, those were rare diseases, and there were no special obstacles to do that in Israel.
So that
Then,
actually leads us to the next question by
yeah.
Ozan Pamir. Thank you for your question. Do you have any examples of trials for rare diseases? So of course, we can't share any information about specific clients, but maybe you can just give some.
I can give some examples. Okay, so one of the examples is the human growth hormone deficiency. The other is ALS.
Mhm.
We are involved in a study in ALS. We know of other companies in Israel that are developing treatments for ALS, and they conducted the study. They started with conducting the study in Israel and then expanded to other areas in the world. So I am trying to think about others, but
Maybe Michael, you have.
So I will confess, I do not have direct experience in trials in rare diseases in Israel. However, just in talking to colleagues, I am aware of clinical trials, again at Sheba, in mitochondrial disease, phase 1b, phase 2 trials in mitochondrial diseases. Know about those just because it's an personal interest area. And then I know that, and again, I've not worked in rare diseases in Israel, but I do know that there is a national rare disease registry that is used
correct.
as a source for patients for trials. Beyond that, I can't provide much of a useful answer.
Thank
But
you.
what I can say is that I will look into our list of studies that we have been involved in during the last 17 years, and share the list of rare diseases that we were involved or that I know of in Israel. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We have a bit more specific question, and I wonder if we have prepared the answer for that, or we might need more information. Let me just read the question, please. I am looking for chemical lab that can do fractions in venom. I am beginning clinical research. Is
Yeah.
it something
So
that we can
we
give the
can look for
answer
that.
immediately?
Yeah. Yeah, no, immediately, but I can check with the chemical laboratories that we know of about specific that service.
So, Abigail and Avi, thank you for this question, and we can try to help you with this. Please, Thomas, I see that you wanted to.
Yes, I don't know the mix-up of the audience, how many are like chief medical officers or development officers compared to, let's say, biotech CEOs, but I can sort of be a stand-in as an avatar or proxy for biotech CEOs. We're always looking for faster, cheaper, better quality, better translatability back to the FDA and other jurisdictions where we want to do global development. And so I just wanted to ask the general question again, if I'm thinking about early translation, so typically I'd be thinking in the country that I'm in, that's a typical default decision. But you hear about things like we should look at Australia, and they have faster, slightly lower requirements. They have a tax credit, so there's a cost element to it, and so forth. And Michael and Reba described Israel as a contender, if you will, for being considered as the site of initial clinical translation. Can we have sort of a general discussion about what are the contexts in which it would make sense for a company, a biotech company, to, instead of going in their local country, go to Israel as opposed to Australia, as opposed to their home country? And certainly cost is a component. And I love the idea that recruitment is an issue. And I think part of it is that I'd like to understand better why a national biobank, mechanically, how that assists and accelerates in patient identification. But I've asked a lot of questions, but these are coming to the heart of the matter, which is, if you're a company considering the site of your initial clinical translation, maybe sharpen the considerations for why Israel should be in the mix, if not the choice.
Well, I'll take a stab and then I'll pass it on to Rivka.
Thank you.
Should I say thanks for the softball question? Not much of a softball. But sure. First of all, most small biotechs, time is as important as money. The ability to move through a regulatory regimen and get to first in human months faster is a key feature. The ability to recruit and complete the study on time and early, actually, is a feature. But again, I like to focus on the ability to seamlessly move in to patient populations, at which point the time savings of a few months translates into a bigger time in early phase one, translates into a time savings of many months, 6, 8, 9 months in late stage phase one, if you're getting into patient cohorts, and even longer once you get into phase two studies. It's an extraordinary speed. The cost is, I've already given you a sense of cost. If you look at a cost savings compared to the US, you're looking at about a 40% cost savings. If you're looking at the costs relative to Australia, since you mentioned Australia, the gross costs in Australia and Israel are really kind of similar. The difference, of course, is you mentioned there's a tax rebate in Australia. Not a tax rebate, there is a rebate in Australia for companies that are not yet revenue stage or have low revenue. That does not apply. That does not apply in Israel. But so there may be a cost differential in your first in human, but the speed to get to a go no go decision is simply unparalleled.
Thank you. And I want to apologize, Martin. You did submit your question before the next question. No, we have two more questions, and I'm addressing Martin from our attendees. But the follow-up question is a bit more general, so we'll get to Ozan's question. And Martin, if we do have the time, we'll try to answer your question as well. And the reason is that Ozan's question is get back on Thomas's question. What would be a reason that you wouldn't want to do a trial or studies in Israel? It seems like a no-brainer from a cost and time perspective. And if you don't mind, I want to maybe give the first answer to that, and then I would love to hear from both of you when you would not recommend on conducting a trial in Israel. But just as a start of answering Ozan's question, I think that Israel has been in focus in the news for the past couple of years for not the most, I would say, optimistic reasons. And I think that it might be in the minds of everybody that even thinks of Israel, even if you don't have any stand regarding the conflict. So that might be a reason why people have not even considered Israel for these reasons, for these activities. I do want to say that we had almost no difficulties in conducting clinical trials or studies or research in Israel, even during these very difficult 2 years, past 2 years. So this is one reason I could think of maybe why people won't consider Israel. It's not a reason not to conduct the research here. And another reason is that people simply don't know of Israel's conditions and benefits in research. But I do think that there might be reasons, and I know it from cases in which we recommend our clients to consider other locations than Israel. So I'm pretty positive that there are specific reasons why a company would consider other locations. So please, Michael and Rivka and Thomas, feel free to address this question.
So maybe I'll start this time.
Yes,
Okay, so
please.
first of all, what happened during the last 2 years, we all know about that, but no study was stopped because of that. That is something that we can assure you of. And why there are companies that will not conduct a study in Israel? We have faced several situations mainly on rare diseases where there is a group that support them. For instance, the patient
Advocacy.
advocacy and others that believe that it is more relevant to conduct that study in a country that they know that there are patients or there are key opinion leaders. So when someone comes with that request, we are not arguing with that, because that is they are the one that for the best interest of them, they would get as quickly as possible to a study. And if they believe that there is a place which will provide them with that advantage earlier, or in a way that more people or more patients with that rare disease will be able to get to the study, then we are not arguing with that. But other than that, I don't see really a reason why not to conduct mainly the phase 1 studies in Israel. That there are, as we mentioned, there are a lot of advantages of that. And I can also tell you that sometimes companies, Israeli companies, go for a pre-IND meeting with the FDA. They come with the results of that meeting, and we tell them, okay, we think that what FDA asks you to do at this stage of development may be too much for you to do, or they come and tell us that. And we say, okay, let's try and talk to the Israeli Ministry of Health. We feel confident that we can discuss it with them, and they will their demands will not be those of the FDA. And we have seen that lately with several projects, that there are some departments in the FDA that the immediate answer is, no, we don't agree. It's like they were dictated to say, no, we don't agree. And for those companies, we really recommend, please try the Israel Ministry of Health. It's not that we are going to do something which is against the regulation or not will be accepted in other jurisdictions. Everything will be per the book, but with more logic approach to the design of the study and to the data that needs to be available to support it.
Thank
Michael,
you.
if you have something to add.
I have very little to add. Rivka, you mentioned the difficult geopolitical situation, and I think you touched on this point, but I will just briefly emphasize that it's been for these very difficult 2 years. There have been no interruptions in clinical trials,
Yeah.
or delays in clinical trials, including recruitment. Which is really quite extraordinary, but the fact that it just hasn't happened. So that, if anything, gives me more confidence that in calmer times, trials will be equally uninterrupted and move forward quickly. Beyond that, I don't have anything to add to your very good and comprehensive answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have much time. If we are able to give a quick answer to Martin, and if not, please, Martin, feel free to contact us and we'll try to reply.
What's the
Martin's
question?
question is, how about running a clinical trial with a new medical device in the field of audiology? Would Israel be a good place for that? So that's a bit more specific. I don't know
Yeah.
if we have something specific to say about this off the top of our heads,
Yeah.
but please.
What I can say is that clinical trials for medical devices are being conducted in Israel. The first in human study is something which is very common to conduct in Israel. Specifically about audiology, I don't have experience with a specific medical device in that area, and we can look at that. But it is common to conduct phase 1 studies in Israel for medical devices as well. The requirements are based on the European regulation, and but you don't need to do a full a list of studies before you get into the clinical trial. So it's a matter of understanding what is exactly the product, and then we can provide you with more input relevant to that.
I
Thank
can
you.
just add that there are a lot of device studies. I don't know about
Yeah.
audiology either, but there are a lot of device studies conducted in Israel. In fact, they're a leader for such things as closed loop pumps for insulin, and actually a preferred place for trials for such things. I do know that from a regulatory standpoint, it's fairly straightforward. If you've already got, an FDA approval,
Yeah.
or in Europe, a CE mark, it's like really streamlined. If you don't, it's similar to the process we've already described for drugs. So
Thank
that
you.
is as much as I can add.
And Thomas, I see that you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, sort of following up on Ozan's question, if you consider time and money, why wouldn't you start in Israel? And sure, there are cases, if there's a very specific disease, for example, where there isn't much of a disease population, but that's highly specific, and we'd have to take a look at those situations. But the take-home message, I think, from this webinar is that I don't have an impression that Israel is typically in the consciousness, on the radar of people when they think about where should we go else than somewhere else than our native country for good reasons to start clinical translation. So I would urge everybody listening to just contact ADRES, contact Connexum, and we can take a look at your specific case. But you need to, the takeaway from here is that there are very good reasons why it should be on the short list of possibilities for, and it's a responsibility really for corporate management to be thinking about different options. And we're happy to, talk to you about that.
Thomas, let me just add.
oh,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Rivka.
No, I just want to say that I want to answer the other question here. So
Yes.
you
No, but
wanted also
Michael,
to answer that?
please go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go. Oh, short answer. FDA fully accepts. Israel is research done in Israel is as acceptable a phase 1, phase 2 as if it was done in the U.S. itself under
Yeah.
IND.
Definitely. Definitely. When I say that FDA says, no, we don't agree, that means that those are specific questions that were asked during a pre-IND consultation. And it's something that has to do with the situation in the FDA and not with the clinical trials in Israel. It's or the research in Israel at all.
Thank you. And I want to thank our audience that brought up very interesting questions. I see that the subject really is new and interesting to many people around the world. And I want to follow up on Thomas's suggestion. I will share with all of the attendees the recording, as I mentioned, and I will share the contact details for Kinexum and for ADRES. We will have a follow-up webinar covering other aspects of development in Israel, but feel free to either ask specific questions that you need support with, or for other topics that you would like us to cover in our next webinars. Thank you very much, Thomas, Michael, Sarah. It's been a pleasure working with you on this webinar. And thank you, Mother Rivka, for everything as well. And enjoy the rest of your day in the USA. For us, it's already evening time. So have a nice evening in Europe and in Israel. Goodbye.
Thank you. Have a
Bye.
nice evening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.